You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma Podcast. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. A huge shout out to Governor Anatobi for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. Our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. Gives me great pleasure to introduce Emily Schuermann to the podcast, who has an Instagram page and a blog and a bunch of other stuff called Food for a Year. And I think by the time this goes out, everyone's probably indulging in or thinking about Thanksgiving, thinking about Christmas dinner and all the food, and then January will come around and you'll think, it's time for a diet. So we're getting ahead of that, probably today. But we are going to talk about cakes and baking and all the good stuff as well, because, everything in moderation is good, in my opinion. So thank you so much for coming down today. Excited to dive into your story and hear about who you are and what you do. So before we dive into the food side of things, tell me a little bit about you. Where'd you grow up and kind of then how did you get into the love of food?
Okay. Well, I was born in Norman, Oklahoma, and I attended school in more public schools in South Oklahoma City. I went to Westmore High School, so I haven't traveled far from home. I attended OU, and I got a degree in geosciences, and then went on from there and got a master's in mechanical engineering at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, and lived there for a little while. And so my entry into food didn't come in a conventional way. And that's one of the things I really like about the opportunities that are presented through food is you can get there in a lot of different ways. First thing is if you like food. That's right. Key. Yeah. You gotta like food. Yeah. But I worked in my field for several years, met my husband, got married, did all those things, became a young mom, and decided to stay home and raise my family. Mm-hmm. And I have 4 children, 3 boys and a girl. In fact, my son just turned 21 this week.
Okay. I read that on your Instagram. You've got like 3 birthdays within 24 hours.
Yeah. My grandma was born on October 14th, and my mom and my son have the 15th. So October is always a celebratory
family month. Yeah.
Lots of cake flowing in our homes. But when I was pregnant with my daughter, I was on bed rest for the entire pregnancy. Okay. And about the time during that window of time, which is a long window, 9 months, Pillsbury Bake-Off was taking entries for their upcoming contest. Okay. And I was bored enough and had enough free time to write a recipe for something I made for my husband and I for dinner all the time. And lo and behold, it was September 1st. At that time, I was 8.5 months pregnant, and I got a phone call. And that was back when it was super cool to have your caller ID flash across the TV screen. Mm-hmm. There was that little window of time. And Why I answered it, I don't know, because it had unknown, and it was an older woman on the other end who was telling me a bunch of legal stuff, and eventually it came out that I had been given a spot in that Pillsbury Bake-Off competition. And this was back in 2009. And that very exciting moment led to every other food moment that I've had since then. Yeah. I went down to Orlando, competed in the bake-off, lost. I didn't win. The prize at that time was $1 million.
Jeez.
And I had the food writer from Tulsa World followed me down there and told my story all across the state. I was on the news and in the radio and the newspaper, and I just had people asking me for recipes and that sort of thing. And it hit me. I don't want to just be sending emails of my own recipes. I need to have a website. And that's where Food for a Year came from. And I was thinking for a while, what do I name this thing? And it hit me that what I want to do is have a platform that I can document not just seasonal items that, like you said, it's Thanksgiving, let's share a recipe for turkey, but it's October 15th and it's my kid's birthday and I'm going to share the cake that is his favorite. Yeah. So it's seasons of life and seasons of the year. And I've just held on to that website like a Bronco bull. I mean, sometimes I want to just run because I get, it gets tiring, and SEO and traffic and all of that can be a downer. And I finally just made the decision 4 or 5 years ago, I don't care what my analytics are. Right. I don't care how many visits I get. I did this for me. And I'm just going to stick to that. I'm not going to worry about keywords. I'm not going to worry about where I rank on Google. I'm just going to write from the heart. And if I don't feel like writing, I'll quit for a little while. And it's just so interesting how a couple little decisions can change the trajectory of where you land. I started teaching private cooking classes to kids. Moms would be like, oh, well, I want my kid to know how to make a cake or be comfortable in the kitchen, to teaching with the Moore Norman Technology Center for 5 years, to writing for Edible OKC in a reoccurring column. And I have found, and when you reached out to me and asked me if I would consider being on the podcast, I try to say yes when my inner self says no. And so that's that's how I've gotten to where I am, is I just try to say yes. To legal things.
Right, yeah, true.
So whoever hears this, if it's an illegal offer, I will not say yes to that.
No, but it's funny you say that. I did a talk on that a couple of years ago about saying yes, and I look back over every place that I've gone and where I am today, and it's because I always said yes to an opportunity, because you can always say no at later.
Yeah.
But and I think and kind of the premise of the talk was like, coming out of COVID and coming out of all the stuff that we went through, it was so easy to say no and be in your shell and say no to opportunity and no to whatever, and you never know then what you're saying no to, rather than just saying yes and being like, oh, actually no, I don't think this is going to work out, then I'm going to back out. But you're right, like, it's amazing how that mind shift too in your head of, I did this for me 20 plus years ago. Like, it wasn't about you, I need to do this because I need to support for, my family, right? Like, it was, I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom, I'm going to raise a kid, and I'm going to do this to start, because I enjoy it, but also because it keeps me busy.
Absolutely. And it gives me a sense of fulfillment. It gives me a sense of, what was interesting is in that interview, Pillsbury did just a ton of press. We had to have headshots, just a whole thing. And that was fun because my headshots are of me 9 months pregnant. The day that headshot was taken, the next Monday, I had that baby. So my nose, it was just so bad. It's awesome. You can Google it. It's so great. I just thought, here you go. Yes, this is what yes
right
gets
now.
you.
Yeah, this is me.
But one of the questions that somebody asked me, in that interview process was, what does it mean to you to be selected by the Pillsbury company to represent their brands this way? And I said, it still rings true almost 15 years later, is what it means to me is you've given me a sense of validation. I don't know that there's a more basic menial task in everyday life than making meals for your family. And, at that time I had a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 4-year-old. And a lot of it was, ooh, I don't like this. This is gross. Why do I have to eat it? And what happened with that opportunity to participate in that contest was that those little things matter. They're noticeable and they're actually good. And I just needed to hear that. And I think today a lot more people need to hear that.
Yeah.
And that's really the heart with which I came into teaching cooking classes, where kids need to hear these things matter. There's room for improvement, and you can shine in this place. You may not be the best math student. You may not know how to score a goal on the soccer field, but you can crack an egg like nobody's business and make people happy with their taste buds. And so that's really the thing that's been the most meaningful to me in this process. And so you're exactly right. I don't have to do this. I get to do it, and I love doing it.
Yeah.
I like being my own boss.
Me too. It's great. And not having a schedule, not having like a 9 to 5, right? Waking up on any day of the week and thinking, you know what? For me, I'm going to go play golf today because the sun's out.
Yeah.
Or no, I'm going to get some work done because it's raining. Or
I'm just going to cook without filming it. I mean, that's, for me.
True.
I'm not going to film this one. I'm not going to record this. I'm just going to cook because it's good and I want to. So
I want to go back a little bit. I don't want to miss the fact that you did just say you went to OU for geosciences and then mechanical engineering at SMU.
Yes.
Where did you think you were going when you were in that period of your life?
I thought was I was going to work within the private sector, helping people meet the regulations and codes of the regulatory agencies, the environmental agencies, rather than being somebody who was on enforcement. The enforcement end and finding failure and offering, issuing fines. That I believe people want to do good and right, and I wanted to be somebody who helped them do that within how they managed their mechanical processes, their manufacturing processes, and so I worked in that field for 4 or 5, 6 years, and then when I got pregnant with my son, and when I was in Oklahoma, I first worked in Dallas. When I moved to Oklahoma City, I was working in hog farms and oil fields. And when I got pregnant with my son, I was testing some wastewater runoff. That's a hard word to say. From a hog farm in Laverne in the middle of an ice storm and blizzard. And I knew I was pregnant, newly pregnant, and I slipped and fell on a pad where that wastewater runoff had frozen. And I flew up in the classic and landed hard on my back. And as the sleet was pounding on my face, I just thought, I don't think this is for me anymore. And I rolled over, and there was a rebar stake, just like 6 inches from me that I could have impaled myself. And then I looked a little further, and there was a row of dead sows. And I was like, that's it. That's it. When this baby comes, I'm out of here so fast. And I know there could have been other good but that was just for me a clear sign of this is not for me. This is not what I want. Yeah. And I always wanted to be a mom. The boys tease me. Now they're 21, 19, and 17, and they always used to.
Are they all boys?
Yeah. Well, and I have a girl who's 14.
Okay.
She'll be 14 in a couple weeks. Yeah. But the boys used to tease me, "What are you going to do when we're gone?" we're out, we're going to be gone, and what are you going to do? And I just would always choke up and say, this is all I ever wanted to do, was be your mom. I never had another plan. Yeah. And so part of food allowed me to do what I wanted to do most, which was be their mom. And I have very much enjoyed it.
Yeah,
I have.
Well, food's so special, right? And I am terrible at cooking, to the point, and I am terrible at cooking because my mum worked at like a factory, and she was the cook, and so she could cook.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have to worry about it, right? And I was fortunate that my parents were like, there was always someone home to cook. And it got to a point that me and my brother would play sports on the weekend, and Sunday roast is big, especially back home, and we'd always have a Sunday roast. And if we were playing sports Saturday and Sunday, Mum would cook the roast Sunday, and we'd eat it for dinner on Monday. Like I never had to worry about food in my house because my mum had it covered. She was the best, and still is. And I do miss that roast every now and then.
I want that recipe.
Yeah, I know, right? So for me, like, I'm lucky because my wife can cook. But if it was up to me, I mean, I'd have chicken and broccoli for the rest of my life, and maybe some microwave stuff. I would have to take lessons.
Yeah.
But, I think about all, like, the great times and all, like, and you look back at families and I've said this multiple times on the podcast, we don't sit around a table as a family. People generally don't do that as a family anymore, and I think people miss out on those connections, especially when you have the generations in the neighborhood or in the house. You have grandparents coming over for dinner, or for Christmas we'd always go to my grandparents' house, and every now and then, maybe once a month, if we weren't super busy, we'd all get together as a family and eat, usually at my nan's house. But all those great memories are around food. Like my nan's apple pie, I miss it. I will miss it for the rest of my life, and like just little things that she would make, right? And it's mostly the grandparents that make them. I mean, my gran, like, completely spoiled me as a kid. Like, she used to make me honey on toast every time I went up there, and just like my granddad would always joke that, like, because she would cut the crusts off them, right? And he would say, you won't have curly hair if you don't eat your crusts. Right, like the stupid. Everyone knows, like, the carrots, right? Don't eat carrots. If you don't eat carrots, you won't be able to see in the dark.
I was gonna say,
right?
Yeah.
But like the curly hair thing about the crust, I was like, I don't want curly hair. Just like the silly little thing.
Be gone with the crust.
Yeah, but it all revolves around food.
Yeah,
and being a mother or being a supportive person, and just
Well, Mike, and the thing is if you were to taste not just any old apple pie,
right,
or not just any old roast, but if you were to taste the roast that takes your mind straight back to that kitchen table, that's the magic.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I think is just so wonderful. Music is another thing that does that. Yeah. But that's what I think is so magnificent about food. Why is food so attractive? Sure, it satisfies in the moment. Sure, it tastes good. Beyond that, it draws me back to a time in memory. My grandma passed a couple years ago. And what did we do on Saturday? We went over to my mom's house and made fudge. That was like where you boil it to a certain temperature and then you have to let it cool down to a certain, because that honored my grandma.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love the opportunity to help people either make memories or experience a memory from food.
Yeah, because the thing that I will probably never get to, but you have had this, is that you're on the cooking side, right? I'm always on the consuming and like the being around the family part, but it's obviously a different feeling, of just gratitude or whatever it is, being the cook, being able to provide that, and then you go one further and you're teaching people to provide that now, which is super special.
It is. It really is. But I'm just like you in that there are recipes that are special in my home that I don't know how to make them. I haven't had the history. They've been made for me. And so that's really the challenge for me, is capturing that and getting that logged into either my website or into a notebook that I have.
Yeah.
Because I know that there will come a time when all I have is the taste to get me back to the
Yeah.
the moment that I'm presently in.
Right, because when you look at like your aunts or your uncles or granddads or whoever that was making those recipes, they don't write it down. It's all in their head.
Well, and they measure
right?
with stuff like, a
pinch
tin
of
can.
Yeah, well, that too. But they're also just like literally like handing.
yeah.
It's all like done by eye, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you can't train that.
You're
You
like,
also
slow it
can't-
down. Let me see that one more time.
Yeah, and that's the funny part too. Is like you're seeing these things. You're like, how do I like I just want to video the whole thing just so you can like.
My
I can
dad
go through
still
it.
talks about a sugar cookie recipe that his grandmother used to make him when he was a little boy, and it was on a wood burning stove, so it's not replicatable in any way. And I spent years, lightheartedly, is this like it? And Dad was always nice to say yes, yes it is. Well, not quite. Never got to it. I was like, okay, that's one for heaven, Dad.
Right.
There'll be sugar cookies in heaven for you.
Yeah, sorry, I've been trying. I just can't figure it out.
It's the wood burning stove.
Right.
I can't.
God, that's the thing about food, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just like
technique, timing, ingredients.
Yeah.
So
one of the things I noticed too, and I noticed this a lot more back home, is that I would have my nans, both have passed now, but I would have, if I went, and this is super British of me too, if I went to one nan's house and had a cup of tea, it would taste totally different to if I went to my other nan's house and had a cup of tea. And it wasn't, like, they could have made it the same, but it was also the water as well.
Yeah.
So the water was different, right? And it was like 4 miles apart. Like, it wasn't a big difference. It wasn't a different state. But there's so many different, like, how do you get those tastes back if you don't live in that area as well, right?
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's all in the details. It really is. What was interesting for me that even warmed me up to food, to have been in the engineering field and in the earth sciences, was how my mom handled me when I was a little girl in the kitchen. And I definitely I did not replicate her technique, but what she did was she would let me do whatever I wanted in the kitchen, and she cleaned up after me. That was like that. If we want to talk about magic, that was the magic stuff. And that I didn't like yard work, so I would. I have one brother, and they were inevitably you have the day where everybody's having to do yard work, pull weeds, trim the shrubs, mow the grass, whatever. I hate that. I still hate that to this day. And so the way I got out of it was I was thinking to myself, I was 8 years old. I remember this vividly. And I thought, well, if I offer to make them dinner, then I won't have to go out and work in the yard. And I said, so hey, can I make dinner? And then, you guys would work out there. When you're done, you'll have food. Because what else? We have no. And so I opened up that orange Betty Crocker cookbook. And I looked all through it and picked the ham and cheese souffle. I mean, an 8-year-old making a ham and cheese souffle. I'd seen Julia Child do it on my black and white TV, and it seemed like no problem. So I always wanted to know, what did that taste like? So I still remember trashing that kitchen so bad. Flour and eggs and eggshells and grated cheese. It was an absolute bomb of a mess. And I got that souffle in the oven, and I opened the oven when time was up, and the souffle fell. And I think that was all that there was for dinner. That's what I'd made. A couple things stand out to me about that. One, they didn't tell me no. Like, why would you make a souffle? Just make, pot roast or whatever it was that we had, or spaghetti. She let me choose, my family let me choose what I wanted to make. And then this brings tears to my eyes to this day, but they sat down and ate it. They ate that fallen souffle and told me it was good. And then my mom, after working out in the yard all afternoon and evening, cleaned up the kitchen by herself. Why do I do what I do? That was a pivotal moment in my life. And, the thing is she had no clue that being that way at that time was going to change only that 1 4-hour window, and all the 4-hour windows that she had influencing my life would be one of the things that I have touched back on as what got me to where I am today. And forget food. What I really want to do is be the kind of person who operates in somebody's life in 4 hours, that gives them a platform for something that they have in their future. And so that's a voice in my cooking classes, in the heart of my writing, that you can. You mentioned, if you want to touch back on something, I want to touch back on you talking about the importance of eating around the dinner table. Yeah. That was one of the things that influenced me documenting these recipes, because if you were to look through a lot of my stuff, it's extremely basic. It's very easy. It's not a lot of showy, braggy, new techniques. I'm not a gastrophysicist in the kitchen. If that's a word, I don't know. What I am is somebody who wants to say, hey, you can do what I'm doing, and it will make a difference in your life. A priority we have still, even with most of the kids gone, is to eat dinner at the dinner table. I think that's where life happens and where people can check in and make sure each other's okay.
Yeah, it's hard to hide when you're around a dinner table with no phones in front of your family.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's very obvious if someone is unhappy or upset, with the 6-8 people around a dinner table, because you're all sat there talking and someone's being quiet, right?
And food smooths the edges. It gives you an opportunity to kind of nestle into having to talk about something hard. And sure has that's at least how it's worked for me.
Yeah, and then you look back at that 4-hour window, right? And if you'd had a bad experience then, maybe you'd never be where we are today, right? If
I don't think we would.
Like, oh, why'd you start yelling at you? And
you clean it up. I was out here. I mean, I can, and I probably have lost some 4-hour windows myself.
Right. Well, it's a very hard skill to do that, to have patience, to teach, to see the longer picture there, right? Because if your mum's walking in, or anyone walks in from doing yard work for all day and sees the kitchen's a mess, they're going to lose their mind.
Like anyone knows. You go open a cookbook and make your own souffle, and what the kitchen looked like was better than what the kitchen looked like for me. It was an 8-year-old making a souffle.
It's such a good moment, though. There's so many lessons from that moment. Right? Yeah. Not just about food.
No, and that was consistent. She was consistently that way.
So, did you always want to have a teaching element to this then?
That was one of those things that I said yes to.
Yeah.
It didn't occur to me. The reality is my inner voice. Do you have an inner voice, Mike?
Yeah, I do. I play golf. I have one on each shoulder.
Okay. Yeah. I just want to make sure that me admitting I have an inner voice isn't going to get me into, admitted into a program. It tells me I have nothing to offer. I am not, anyone could do what I'm doing, and I need to just sit down and be quiet. That's a general, it's not a quote, but that's the feeling that I have inside. And so how did I get to teaching people was because I just challenged myself to tell that voice to shut up and to say yes more. And I will say, for as much as I joke about, I don't know how many 4-hour opportunities I've offered people teaching, my intention was to send that same experience that I had in, 1984 to the next person. I had one girl who, her mom sent her to me, and most of the time it ended up being private. People would cancel or no one else would sign up for a class, but I just had determined I didn't care how much money was coming in for that this is where I was meant to be at this moment with this person, and it had value. This one little girl came in, and I'm sure she was around 7th grade or so, and couldn't make eye contact, really couldn't have a conversation at all. And over the course of that semester, she came in once a week, and by the end of it, it was it was my most enjoyable hour of 2 of the week. And she left smiling, and it hit me. That was the moment that hit me. She'll never be, I don't know for sure, this could be totally wrong, but she may never be the person who is the star of a sport or a prodigy with the piano. She may not be getting a scholarship for math, but she was just told by somebody that she's good and can do something hard. And it really transformed her countenance in that semester. It was amazing. And that's what I love about food. You can come with nothing and knowing nothing and become excellent at something. And my goal is to offer that opportunity to people.
Do you only kind of focus that on the kids? Is that where you see most impact?
Absolutely. The kids come in with less "I can't" attitude and more curiosity. I taught adults through More Norman Technology for 5 years, and there's definitely a different attitude, but just as much excitement. But I think there's a greater impact on the kid. I do.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that there's just the perspective of being a mom. I would tell my kids when to eat, when to sleep, what to wear most of the time. I was the one who took them to get a haircut. I took them to the dentist. I told them what to brush their teeth with. There was very little that they had an opportunity to express themselves for, and food is one of those things that you can, both in what you make in the kitchen and what you eat. And I think that's why I loved teaching kids in that way. It was a place where they could feel like they were in control. When so much else they can't have any influence over, they can have influence in the kitchen.
Yeah. Tell me about then the writing and blogging side of it, because I assume that's where the adults pay attention and get more info from you that way.
So writing, I've always liked creative writing. Okay. I mean, I remember in high school enjoying putting emotion in words. And I kind of hit a little narrow window of time where blogging was noticeable. Now, I mean, there's so many different platforms that I think the blog is, an ancient, archaic thing, like to even actually still be running it.
Right.
And I have no advertisements on my blog. I mean, you never find a blog that has, but I'm like I said, I'm not there for that.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing that happened, really, Instagram was the thing that kind of helped connect me out into the world.
Okay.
Several years ago, Edible OKC found me through an article that I had written on my website. And, one thing led to the next, and somebody asked me to write and pay me for it, and that's kind of what I just said yes.
Yeah.
It's really almost embarrassing how what's the word I'm looking for? How ambivalent I was toward that. Like I was not pursuing being paid to do anything. My first paid article actually was when 12 or so years ago, we'd built a house in Norman. I wanted to have a copper sink in that kitchen. My builder just was saying, you're going to regret that. And that was all I needed to have that copper sink.
Yeah.
And then I had a bunch of friends just saying, well, how's that copper sink working for you? And it was actually working pretty good. And so I wrote a blog post about it, and the owner of that company found me and privately messaged me and asked if he could buy that article on my website. I said yes. Yeah. And I worked for him. In fact, I just talked to him this week, and that's been, that has been 13 years.
Wow. It's amazing how that works, right? And how amazing the internet is, and how we can find, and just by not worrying about what anyone else thinks, but by writing what you want, and writing your feelings, and writing your thoughts, and literally, because a lot of people write something down and then they don't post it because they're worried about what their sister or their friends are going to think about it. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, 10 people might even read it. Doesn't matter.
You're right. You're actually right.
The owner of this might write it. And, you never know.
No.
But the good thing is you've been putting it out for so long, and you get, I did a blog for a little bit I just wanted to feel and how that was. I did a daily one for a month. And, I just, I would take a few photos that day and it, got me in the rhythm of doing it, but it got me in the rhythm. I learned so much more about, I don't care if anybody reads this, right? Yeah. And the majority of people aren't.
You're exactly right. And that's really my perspective is, well, two things. I'm not going to write for sensationalism.
Yeah.
I know my lane, and my lane is food. and I'm comfortable in that lane. And so you're not going to hear me stepping outside of that lane. Not because I'm weak or unaware, but because I believe that you can go somewhere else to find the information that you want about whatever topic is going on. If you want to know about food, you can come to me.
Yeah.
So I don't write for clicks. I don't write for pay. I mean, people pay me, but like I said, my website has no advertisements on it. And I have people who will send me a message and say that it was so nice to look through your website because there was not one pop-up. And I'm like, I don't even know how to install a pop-up. I mean, I don't. The truth of the matter, I don't have time for that. Like, I'm over here in the kitchen working. If you want to see something, and then somebody was saying, well, why don't you have some of those new things where you can jump to the recipe? I don't know if you probably don't, but you can start at the top of a blog post and click jump to the recipe. And I'm like, because that would actually clog up the functionality of it. And if somebody doesn't want to read what I wrote, is it really that big of a deal to scroll down for 3 seconds, count to 3, and you're at the recipe?
And they probably won't even make it anyway.
And they probably aren't going to, statistics show that you're on a site for about 4.5 seconds. So, but anyway, so that's the deal, is I write for myself. In the process of writing for myself, it has allowed, me a platform to end up writing for myself with other people paying me. And I do really enjoy that.
Tell me about kind of what the day-to-day is like then. You're videoing yourself. And the other thing too is taking photos of food is extremely hard, and you do a very good job of it.
Thank you.
So that's skill for people listening. Just try to take photos of your food and realize how hard that is.
Okay, Mike.
I have tried.
You need to come over to my house.
But tell me. I probably do. I need lessons in a lot of things. Tell me about how the day works and how your content works, and like I said, you only post when you feel like it. But what is like the plan behind whatever it is that you do and the process?
Guess what the most valuable commodity in food photography and writing is?
Probably your iPhone.
Light. Natural light.
Okay. Natural light. Not
light.
A ring light. Natural.
No
light.
ring light.
Okay.
Natural light.
Okay.
So for me, that's where my money is.
Okay.
And I don't mean like my pocket. I'm not getting rich on it, but that's what creates the product that I offer to a brand, or offer to my Instagram account, or whatever the case may be, is lighting. So in this new house, I put a window on either side of my stove, just clutch. Mm-hmm. My countertop is a matte black soapstone type counter, which is like awesome I don't even have to edit that photo sometimes because it's the lighting is so perfect. I do edit it, but I wouldn't have to. And then I built a room to the side of my kitchen, just 3 steps away. That is my photo table, my filters, my tripod, all of my backdrop, like all of my linens and plates and everything is just right there. That was one of the perks of moving, was once I had been doing this for so long, I knew exactly what I needed. And so lighting is awesome. So I know when I need to have a recipe prepared in order to photograph it based on the time of day. So how my day looks. I spend a lot of time. The thing about me with food writing is I try to take a 2 or 3 off of something that's familiar, if that makes any sense. So I don't like looking at what other people are doing. I don't like seeing what's trending, typically. What I try to do, I have a large collection of old vintage cookbooks. And so what I try to do is kind of pull together some concepts and techniques, and then I do a lot of thinking. I write that recipe in my head, and I probably do it 4 or 5 times in my mind before I've even started. So I may be sitting there looking catatonic, but I am working. I usually wake up about 3 every morning and lay there and I'm thinking through, okay, what if I did it like this? Well, then, okay, well, how would I plate it? Well, the elevation would not look. Okay, well, then I would go back. And so there's a lot of adjusting. A lot of time is spent in that way. And then, like I said, the rest of it is just a matter of once that thing is ready to film, it is get out of my way. The kids know, don't come in the kitchen. When they do, I'm like, get out of the kitchen. I wish there was a video of that process.
Yeah.
Because they're usually standing around me while can I taste it now? Can I taste it now? Can I taste it? Can I have some of that?
Phone eats first.
And you know what?
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 10 years.
Yeah.
Literally doing it for 10 years. And that's why I look at them and I say, you think that I'm going to make this and throw it in the trash?
Right.
Of course you can eat it.
Right.
Every single time. Can I have that? Is that for dinner? Is that what's for dinner? Can I have that? So what I need to
never stop being kids, ever.
No. Or that one of them will, now that they're 2 of them are out of the house, it'll be, you made that without me. Did you save me any? Can I have the leftovers?
Yeah. Yeah, Mom, can I come over for dinner tonight because I'm hungry and I see that on your Instagram you're cooking something I really want.
So the bottom line is I'm a mom first.
Yes. Yeah.
It doesn't matter what else is happening. They're all around me.
Yeah.
So that's it. And then the worst is cleaning up the dishes.
Sure.
I hate that part.
Yeah, it's never fun.
So that
is my job in the house though, because my wife cooks.
That's
and
my
I
husband's
clean.
job.
Yeah. Loading the dishwasher is easy.
Yeah. And so there's a do not get in my way moment, and then there's a let's hurry up and clear it all up moment.
Yeah.
I do enjoy working with brands because whether it's something that I had followed, like I have a current project right now with a brand that I've been working for off and on for a couple of years. And I told them when they reached out to me, I said, I have your stuff in my refrigerator right now. Your, whatever the item was significant in getting my kids a full tummy. And so when that happens, I love working that way. But I like working for brands I'm not familiar with too, because it's like the show on Food Network, Chopped, where you open up the basket and you're like, okay, what am I going to do with this? And so it's always something new. As soon as one project is over, another project is pressing on me. And so what it looks like is I'm constantly thinking about the next thing.
Yeah.
Thinking about the next deadline.
That's fun though.
It's fun.
Keeps you moving.
It definitely does. Yeah.
That is exciting, and like you said, it's like it's the kind of food equivalent of opening up a Lego box and thinking, what am I going to make?
Absolutely.
Right? Like I got to make something, and this is what I have to make something, which is
well, and you walking onto a golf course, and you're looking at from hole 3 to hole 4, the wind is doing this, but the slope is doing that, and the million variables. Yeah,
which keeps it exciting, which I love. Finishing up, tell me about your favorite spots to eat in Edmond, downtown, Oklahoma City, wherever it's at, because it's no secret that Oklahoma City's food scene has gotten extremely better since the Spaghetti Warehouse days of Bricktown.
Oh, hasn't it? Yeah.
And so as someone from just the love of cooking and home cooked, what do you appreciate? And you obviously you have an eye for it. You see things differently to myself and others who don't cook as much.
Man, I should have done my research on that question. That is a very hard question to answer for a couple different reasons. I do see stuff that I would like to not see, or not focus on, I guess is a better way of saying notice. I see things I would wish I didn't notice is a good way. Actually, one of the portions of the column that I do for Edible OKC is going in and working with a chef. That's been really, really fun. I just finished a collaboration with Ma Dur in Oklahoma City.
Still need to go there.
You've got
amazing,
to
right?
go there.
Yeah.
So Chef Jeff taught me how to make rice noodles.
Okay.
It was an awesome day in the kitchen with him. And he taught me how to make his grandmother's chicken noodle soup.
Oh, that's so special.
Which is served at his restaurant on Saturdays. And that's not a plug. I'm just saying it happens
Saturdays?
to be. Just Saturdays. It's called Saturday Chicken Noodle Soup.
Okay.
And it's served until it runs out. And it always runs out.
Yeah.
And he taught me how to make that. And so I've been practicing that technique and practicing, he didn't use carrot, celery, and parsley. He used the Laotian kind of trinity of lemongrass and ginger and green onions and achar. But anyway, I've been practicing that technique myself. But so Madura is one of them.
Okay.
And what I love about that is it's familiar and not all at the same time. So I would bet you $5 that if you went in and sat down and had a bowl of that chicken noodle soup, something in that bite would take you back to your home.
Yeah.
It would. It did me. Sedelia's is another one. I worked with the chef at Sedelia's, and that they're cutting edge. They have fresh seafood that's flown in. Rules are a second thought, not a first thought. First is, how can I honor this food and make it good? In Edmond, I actually really like Mount Everest.
Okay.
It's Nepalese and Indian. I like simply falafel. It's Lebanese, Middle Eastern, Syrian food. There is it called the granary?
Okay.
Oh,
Maybe.
This may be the part where you zip out.
Yeah.
But it's the silos, the flour silos.
Okay.
There's a restaurant in that
Yeah.
that is delicious. It's a higher end dining, very good. There's a signature grill that I've heard awesome things about and haven't been there, but it's on my list.
Mm-hmm.
We just have lived here for like 8 weeks, so I have a big mountain to climb in becoming familiar with Edmond.
There's a lot of cool stuff in it.
So anyone who wants to give me a list,
Yeah.
send it to me on Instagram, and I will put it there and start tracking it down.
Awesome.
I do love food.
Yes. Well, and that's the thing. Like, me too. And it's what's funny is my dad was here about a month ago, and we went out and ate at all the. We went to Aishan's, right? We go to Robert's Grill in El Reno. We go to all the kind of famous spots with terrible, like, great food, but not good for your body. And my dad got home and probably shouldn't have seen his doctor within 24 hours of going back to the UK. And the doctor said, "You're no longer eating red meat until I tell you so." Because we just loaded up on red meat for a week, steaks and everything else, and onion hamburgers and, fried chicken and all the great stuff, right? All the feel-good food that you should only eat once a month, not in the space of a week.
Yeah.
But there is other foods, like you just said, like it doesn't have to be unhealthy food. It can be, I think there's such a stigma around, like, unhealthy food super expensive, or unhealthy food, we can't do that because of whatever it is. But no, you can, and it's great that you have a spot for that as well, and you're also teaching, kids that, hey, if mom's busy, then we don't have to go to McDonald's, or we don't have to go somewhere.
Well, if you know how to scramble an egg, then you've given.
I don't know how to scramble an egg. I know how to make fried eggs, so we'll go get it. I can do egg on toast.
It's the same concept. If you give a person, if you give them a fish, you feed them for a day. If you teach them how to fish, you feed them for a lifetime, and that is the concept within the kitchen for me.
Yeah,
is I'm not trying to give you a fish. I'm trying to give you a lifetime of fish. Yeah, with confidence. Yeah. The last thing I would say is what I love about my time in the kitchen, whether it's with my kids or in a teaching setting, is failure is very cheap. Mm-hmm. And failure is as much of a learning opportunity. It's more of a learning opportunity. Yeah. And there's very few things in life that failure is such a comfortable thing. Mm-hmm. And so that's the perspective, is I'm always looking for where's the part where we failed, or where's the part that you're scared to fail. Yeah. And then let's break down what's so scary about that failure. And when it comes down to it, what's scary is that you maybe have to eat something that tastes less than perfect, and you maybe wasted a couple dollars. Yeah. Even in today's food costs, a couple eggs, a little bit of flour is cheap.
No big deal.
No big deal. And you'll probably never make that mistake again.
Yeah, true. You need to make it once so you never make it again.
Yeah.
Well, so people can find you at foodforayear.com.
Yes.
Is that where everything is? And then Food for a Year on Instagram, which
Yes.
I'll post in the link down in the description down below. People can go click on that. Finishing up, do you have any events coming up soon or anything that you're excited about?
Let's see. Coming up, this is the Super Bowl of food is Thanksgiving and Christmas. I have a couple of projects I'm working on with a few brands. I have a couple friends in Norman that I do some one-offs where I make some of the stuff that I write about and then sell it. So I've got a Reclaim Warehouse event middle of November in Moore, Oklahoma, and then the Farm Girl Fair. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it's a big event in Norman where a bunch of women, it used to be women makers, but now it's local makers of all sorts, come and bring their wares, whether it's food or art or whatever. And they have a holiday event coming up in the Small Business Weekend. So that I'll be at
last
that.
Saturday of November.
Yeah, like the day after Black Friday.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, Emily, thank you so much.
Yeah,
It's been an absolute blast.
Well, thank you.
I'm now
Thank you.
hungry.
Well, good.
I hope everyone else listening is
I've
too.
done my job.
You've done your job, yeah. God, I'm going to have to go to Mardea soon. I'm going to have to do that.
Do it.
Especially on Saturday, chicken noodle soup.
Yeah.
So, awesome. Yeah. Well, for people listening, I'll put the link to Emily's website in the description down below, as well as the Instagram. And reach out. You'll learn some things. And even if you want to take better photos, natural light is the way to go.
Yeah.
So, thanks so much. We'll catch you next episode. Okay. Cheers. Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well, so people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.